Meghan had nothing in common apart from the fact that they both came from hardworking families. But even that, I would say, was questionable because Thomas Markle might have been hardworking. We don't know what Doria was up to. She was hustling, but always at some weird game. Meghan, Kate, on the other hand, had parents very steady, very reliable, dependent, upper middle class family. This was all very interesting because I've never known anything about her background except for the fact that she came from a very steady upper middle class family. And Tom Bauer gives us some color about Kate. She was born in 1982 to a very contented middle class family, very at peace with themselves. Her father had been a former BA flight dispatcher who had met her mother, Carol, when employed as a secretary for British European Airways at Heathrow. Carol's parents had been former miners in County Durham, and she'd been brought up in a very small house, and they encouraged Carol's ambitions. By the time she was 32, Carol had married, had given birth to 3 children, and set up a home-based business in the family's Berkshire home. Party Pieces, her business was called, and it offered everything for children's parties. It was all just very nice and normal. Now, this was very interesting to me because Carol's a bit of a mover and a shaker herself. Carol should be credited completely with the fact that William and Catherine ever met each other. Or not that they met each other, but that they ever became involved with each other. She was particularly shrewd because after Kate and William had met at 2 teenage parties, she realized that there might be a way for Kate to spend more time with William. So once she had realized that William was registered to study art history at St. Andrews University, Carol discussed and agreed that her daughter should switch from Edinburgh to St. Andrews and register for the same course and take a gap year so that they would both end up being contemporaries. Thereafter, Kate had a happy, but it was a little bit fraught 8-year relationship as William's girlfriend. Now, I think it stands to reason, you guys. She met him when she was in college, right? We know this. And everyone acts like it took forever for him to get around to asking her to marry him. You guys, he asked her to marry him when he was 28 years old, okay? Not exactly 1 foot in the grave. So, I mean, when he met her, he would have been like very young. He just got to college. 20 years old, he meets her. Get out of town with this business of why didn't he hurry up and marry her? When you're 20 years old, what do you even know? And I think that he showed immeasurable wisdom to wait until he was 100% sure that not just that he wanted to marry her, but that she wanted to marry him and that she was in for it. There were times during those 8 years when they broke up. And there were times when possibly she doubted, did she want this? But for him to wait and make sure that she was ready, he'd seen what happened with his own parents' relationship. They were thrust together. They were put together when her father did not love his mother. It had just been this arranged marriage. He didn't want to be with her. William had borne the brunt of their unhappiness on his little shoulders his whole life. Why in the world would he want to rush into marriage with somebody who he wasn't sure of, even though everybody else in the family loved her? They wanted her to be part of the family. She'd been invited in numerous times to different things, and he was slow to get there. And I can't applaud him enough for that decision. And also her for just being like, I can wait. I don't have to rush. She and he had plenty of time to make that decision. They had all of their 20s. And let me just tell you, as somebody who got married when she was super young, being married as a young person and having babies when you're very young is hard. It's hard, and then if you had the whole weight of the royal family leaning on you, needing things from you, and you're having to bear up under all of that pressure, he showed so much wisdom in waiting until he was mature enough, not only to bear the royal family's weight, but also to bear the weight of being a husband and a father as he should be. And I think that he waited until he was ready, and now look at the fruit of having waited. Meanwhile, we look over at Harry and Meghan. Yes, they were much older when they chose to get married, and so there would have been some pressure, I suppose, there, since they talked about wanting children, to hurry up and get it done. But Harry didn't know Meghan. Had he even just waited a couple more years to make sure, and had he listened to the wisdom of his family and friends, William had the blessing of his family way earlier than he decided to take that blessing. Harry never had the blessing of his family, yet he decided to ignore all of that. It's wild to me how different two brothers can be being raised under very similar circumstances. I mean, everybody's an individual, yes. But William chose to learn from his environment, and Harry chose to resent his environment and react to it instead of learn from it. And these are the fruits of that. So anyway, William and Kate finally get married after those 8 years. And, you know, Kate withstood some scrutiny as well in the media. People called her Waity Katie and all this, you know, making fun of her. They made fun of her family, acted like, you know, they mimicked her mother, always, you know, with this whole doors to manual thing because she used to work for an airline. But Catherine never let that, you know, be a deterrent. I also think, too, that she was just never somebody that people wanted to dislike. Also, there was nothing in her background that she had to be ashamed of anyway. They could have dug and dug and dug and never find anything. The one thing that they found when she was, you know, at college and she was in that fashion show and what she was wearing was kind of scanty. Okay, big deal. I mean, nobody was truly offended by that. You know, she was in college, who cares? She was in a fashion show. It's not like she walked on campus and went to class like that. So even that, like, nobody could really be mad about it. And she's just always been somebody that you were rooting for. She was always somebody you wanted to succeed. She was always somebody you wanted William to be with. She's just beautiful and heart, mind, and spirit. And physically, too. But I mean, even apart from that, her personality is just so wonderful for the role that she's been asked to play. And she has just taken that on with so much humility, so much understanding that she can learn from her betters, and that she's willing to do so. And that graciousness and that humility is just all over her. It's beautiful. And it's such an inspiration when you watch the way that she conducts herself. It inspires you to be more gracious, more beautiful, more royal in your own demeanor and in your own personal character. It's amazing just watching her, how when you get finished watching her, you want to do better as a human being, even if you watch her for 30 seconds. You know, it's amazing. It's amazing. And this is, you know, those are the fruits of humility and of graciousness. You inspire those around you when you conduct yourself with, you know, gorgeous character. It makes other people want to improve themselves. It elevates everybody who's around you. Okay, well, they get married. It's spectacular. Everybody, the whole world tunes in. The whole world is celebrating them. At the same time that Meghan enters the picture some years later, you know, in 2016, she enters at a very particularly sensitive time for the Cambridges, because when she showed up, William and Catherine had moved away to establish their family and sort of just to protect their family unit from the demands of the palace while they brought up their children, and they'd spent 5 years away from the palace. It had come time that they needed to join back in with some more royal duties because the Duke of Edinburgh was going to retire very, very soon, and so more duties were going to be expected of them. They moved into Kensington Palace. It was a 22-room spread. There was 2 kitchens. It was quite palatial, but not surprising. William's the heir. He also has to have people in his home. He has to entertain dignitaries. He has to live in a place that is appropriate to his station. Now, in those early weeks, and we know how Meghan felt about this. Meghan and Harry lived right across from them at Notcott. They had been invited, and we remember what Meghan's reaction was when she went into their gorgeous home, and how sour they were and spare about the fact that they had nothing but IKEA lamps and a couch bought from sofa.com with her credit card. They went in very sour about what they felt was unfair to them, and the discrepancy between what was given to William and what was given to Harry. But first of all, William is the heir, is married, has 3 kids. Of course he's going to need a bigger place than Harry and his girlfriend. I mean, come on. In those early weeks, Meghan enjoyed the pomp and illusion of aristocratic power. She assumed the Windsors would not ignore her professional success. But, like I said in the last episode, she felt that because Catherine had not been from a titled father, that it was going to be totally acceptable that she herself, Meghan, did not come from title or excessive privilege. But the problem is, like I've already mentioned before, Catherine scaled the ladder fairly easily because she wasn't an objectionable person. When Meghan entered the picture, everybody had been very excited about her and would have let her rise to the top as well, if there hadn't been any big question marks. But unfortunately, there are just so many question marks about her that yes, she got pulled down. And in the last episode, we talked about how the fact that Meghan felt like she was such a success story. Why wasn't that getting highlighted? She felt like that was going to be the only thing anybody talked about. What a success she'd been. What a professional success she'd been. What a personal success she'd been. And when she looked at Catherine and saw that pretty much that's all that people had said about Catherine, she assumed that the same would be extended to her. But again, Catherine did not have the background, the sketchy background that Meghan did. The messiness of Meghan's past, her divorced parents, the Hollywood zoo, her failed marriage, the impetuous years in Toronto, the countless relationships, definitely contrasted with the appearance of Kate's unsullied and cool confidence. Meghan deemed that Catherine was aloof and suspicious of her, and that she was cold and odd. The reason that they didn't get along together was that she was warm and bubbly and this friendly American, and Catherine was just this, cool and unfriendly, nose in the air Brit. Hardly. Tom Bauer says in reality, Kate was shy and unpretentious. Some would say that her reticence reflected a woman without the same interests as Meghan. So if they didn't have a lot to talk about, it's because they didn't have a lot in common. Really, a clash between the two seemed likely. During the first weeks, any tension passed unnoticed. At Harry's request to cement Meghan into the family, palace officials swiftly encouraged the impression that Kate's close relationship with Harry would automatically extend the trio to become the Fab Four. So the palace also wanted to sort of put forth this narrative that Harry was eager to make a reality. Meghan and Kate and me and William, we're all just such great friends. He wanted everyone to recall all of the pictures and images of he and William laughing and having a great time, and him laughing with Catherine, and he just wanted to just slip Meghan right in there, and they would just be this awesome couple gonna take charge of the world. And I remember thinking at the very beginning, how lovely, how fun. Doesn't that look like a good time? Well, it was all really just fabrication. There never was a time when they were the Fab Four. There never was a time when they all got along. There never was a time when they couldn't wait to do life together. They were just too different. And Harry's insistence that they all look at it that way was annoying because nobody felt like being the Fab Four. They also began to try to push the narrative out there again, that Harry was just so happy. They wanted the world to be happy for Harry. Harry had found his match, had found his mate in Meghan. That nothing could be better between he and William. They reminded us all that Harry's got that genuine charm you guys like, and really he's got this hypnotically seductive power for around women. Those are really their words in this statement. Hypnotically seductive power toward the girls. Okay, I'm not sure who was hypnotized and seduced by Harry, but all right. They also wanted us to remember that he was not feeling upset about not being the future king, that they also wanted him to remember that he wasn't the naughty boy anymore. And they wanted us also to remember that he was a charity superstar. To Harry's good fortune, everyone assumed he was respectful and loyal. And the thing is that at events, like I've mentioned before earlier, he was showing himself to be very relaxed in a way that people hadn't seen him. He was the face of all of these very interesting charities. The Invictus Games, Cenobal, which was where he went to Lesotho and helped children with AIDS. Later on, he and William and Kate created this mental health charity called Heads Together. So on the face of it, on paper, it looked like Harry had really found his niche as being this wonderful, warm, charity-loving individual, much in the vein of his mother. And the palace certainly wanted to push that narrative amidst this sort of rolling boil of negativity that was constantly threatening to spill over onto Harry. They wanted us to remember, hey, you guys like this guy, okay? He's a great guy. He's got great charities. He probably made a great choice in a girlfriend. Don't be upset.